Welcome back to NBC News Channel. Today, we will learn about a mounting mystery in Salem as Tony vanishes under suspicious circumstances and Kristen faces a daring abduction that sends shockwaves through the DiMera empire and beyond. Vanishing act to Tony's peril. Tony DiMera's disappearance begins on a Mediterranean cruise, where a routine port stop in Corinth turns into alarm after Anna reports he failed to reboard and cannot be reached, prompting EJ to mobilize a search amid long simmering DiMera tensions. Hours later, a too-neat explanation surfaced. Tony supposedly missed the ship due to a business detour and spotty service, fueling Fenn's suspicion that this is a cover for a larger play tied to DiMera power or an identity switch. Kristen's brazen abduction. As panic swells over Tony, a separate shock hits Statesville. Kristen DiMera is kidnapped in a high-risk prison breach, a move bold enough to suggest inside help, a sophisticated operation, or an enemy with deep pockets and a long memory. Eyewitness chatter and teaser clips hint at a stealthy intruder, growing unrest behind bars, and whispers that this abductor has a personal vendetta, upping the stakes for whoever controls the next move in Salem. Threads that bind the crimes. The twin crises echo DiMera history: kidnappings, doubles, and long-game vendettas, raising the question of whether Tony's missed ship and Kristen's abduction are synchronized steps in a larger orchestration. Speculation intensifies around the classic imposter gambit, with theories that Andre may be alive or leveraging a double to maneuver Tony into a new Stefano-shaped role, while removing Kristen neutralizes an unpredictable wildcard. Motives in the shadows. Power consolidation is the obvious motive, with DiMera Enterprises perpetually contested. Removing Tony destabilizes leadership, while kidnapping Kristen cuts off a force who can flip alliances overnight. There's also the family-wound factor: old betrayals, contested legacies, and unresolved questions about Kristen's origins have long been used as pressure points. And someone may be exploiting those fault lines now. Suspects and red herrings. The classic Andre hypothesis: subtle shifts in Tony's behavior, renewed zeal for corporate dominance, and the crew's timing bolster the idea of a precision swap or a forced transformation storyline. A third-party mastermind. The surgical prison breach implies paramilitary precision or institutional compromise, suggesting a well-funded adversary with reach beyond Salem's usual suspects. Family-adjacent schemers, with EJ's duplicity frequently cited and inter-sibling tensions high. An internal orchestrator weaponizing outsiders cannot be ruled out. Fallout across Salem. Anna's desperation is set to collide with DiMera corporate infighting, as each hour without Tony fractures trust and pushes allies into an easy pact to keep rivals from seizing the board. Meanwhile, Kristen's removal ricochets through ongoing arcs. Every alliance she held or threatened is suddenly unmoored, creating a vacuum that opportunists will rush to fill. Visual clues from promos. Recent previews spotlight Kristen's captivity, set up an abandoned site to blow a restrained victim, a sense of an unseen presence stalking the perimeter, teasing that the snare was tailored and personal. Parallel montage beats of teen story threads and hospital updates starkly contrast with the criminal precision of the abduction, sharpening the sense that Salem's everyday chaos masks a calculated endgame. The DiMera legacy angle. Kristen's complicated blood and adoption lineage continues to fuel narrative volatility. Questions around her real place in the dynasty have always invited rivals to probe for leverage, a dynamic ripe for exploitation now. If someone seeks to rewrite succession, discrediting or disappearing both Tony and Kristen would be a ruthless but effective path to clearing the line of claimants. Strategic forecasts. Short term, expect a scramble for proof of life, ransom-style demands that are really power tests, and a tug-of-war over which crisis to triage first: vacuum at DiMera Enterprises or the prison break scandal. Medium term, watch for a rescuer who arrives too conveniently, a familiar DiMera mask twist, or breadcrumbs pointing to a resurrected adversary manipulating the board from offshore safehouses and cutouts. Long term will reveal that binds both crimes under one architect, reframing months of odd behavior as set up for a coronation, with Salem's institutions, palace, courts, even Statesville exposed as compromised. What would crack the case? A port of call manifest gap tied to a forged business rendezvous could expose the crew's alibi as fabricated, while surveillance blind spots at Statesville matched to guard rotations would map an inside job. Cross-referencing offshore shell movements around the time of the cruise and the prison breach could link funding trails, pointing to a single bankroller behind both strikes. Why no and who benefits? Anniversary-adjacent arcs traditionally invite seismic resets, and destabilizing to top-tier DiMeras once clears narrative space for the next dynasty gambit. The winner is whoever emerges holding a credible DiMera banner and clean hands, able to claim they saved the family from chaos they quietly engineered. Bottom line for fans: two seemingly separate shocks are most compelling when treated as coordinated chapters of one plot. Tony's disappearance softens the castle walls while Kristen's extraction removes the most volatile defender. Stay alert for tells in dialogue cadence, sudden competency upgrades in fringe players, and any returnee whose timing feels a shade to perfect because in Salem, coincidence usually has a signature. Based on the article below, create a completely new article compared to the original article. I want the article to be significantly lengthened, with creatively rephrased sentences and new details added to each paragraph. You can even invent new elements and provide a detailed analysis of each section. No rambling, no analysis. Focus on the main ideas of the original article. The opening sentence will always be a greeting. For example, "Welcome back to NBC News Channel. Today, we will learn about the issue." I want my article to be between 5,000 and 8,000 characters. First, Tony mysteriously disappeared or was kidnapped. Now Kristen too. Something is definitely going on. Tony is suspected of kidnapping, and Andre, Tony's dead twin brother, is suspected of being resurrected and taking Tony's place, and kidnapping Tony. Next, the weekly days that shows Kristen blindfolded. Even though Kristen is still wearing her prison jumpsuit, she'll be far beyond the walls of Statesville when the blindfold is removed. "Where am I?" Kristen asks as the teaser video ends. It looks like Kristen will be kidnapped from prison, so she'll definitely be eager to find out who's behind it and why. These of our live spoilers say a new Kristen mystery is coming, so don't miss the whole thing. Are Kristen and Tony locked up together? Did Andrew do it all? Hint at a shocking ending to this post. Welcome back to NBC News Channel. Today, we will learn about the escalating DiMera crisis as Tony vanishes under sinister circumstances and Kristen is snatched from Statesville in a brazen grab that screams coordination and long-game revenge. The disappearing count. Tony's exit doesn't feel accidental, it feels engineered. Hours after his last verified sighting, conflicting accounts surface: a misship, a business detour, and gaps in communication that only deepen suspicion of a swap or staged absence. Family history makes one explanation impossible to ignore. When Tony goes off the grid, the shadow of a twin steps into the light. The Andre question. Whispers turn to theories when the timeline lines up too neatly for comfort. Andre, the dead twin with a notorious taste for masks, proxies, and power plays, fits every loose thread. A sudden change in Tony's demeanor, corporate maneuvers that don't match his usual instincts, and a convenient absence that leaves his seat vulnerable to occupation. If Andre is resurrected or a double is active, Salem isn't just dealing with a kidnapping, it's dealing with substitution. Kristen's prison snatch. In the weekly preview, Kristen appears blindfolded, still in her orange Statesville jumpsuit, and emphatically not inside any prison walls. The blindfold lifts on an unfamiliar location, and her first words, "Where am I?" underline the precision of the operation: fast, clean, and unmistakably personal. This wasn't a chaotic break, it was an extraction designed to isolate her from allies and information. Beyond the walls, beyond the rules. Keeping Kristen in her prison garb while moving her offsite is a message as much as a logistical detail. It signals control: her identity is fixed, her mobility is theirs, and the clock is ticking against her. Whoever did this wants her disoriented, cut off from DiMera leverage, and primed to talk or to serve as bait. The one thing Kristen won't do is stay quiet, which means a dangerous escalation is imminent. Are the cases linked? Two disappearances touching the same dynasty rarely occur by chance. Tony's vanishing act creates leadership chaos. Kristen's removal silences a volatile player who knows where too many bodies are buried. Together, they feel like the opening gambit of a hostile takeover, and the strategist, neutralize the disruptor, and force the remaining DiMeras to react from a place of fear. The mastermind profile. A planner who understands DiMera psychology and corporate choke points. Access to prison routines and transport corridors to move a high-profile inmate without a trace. The patience to seed a twin swap narrative, or the audacity to revive a dead man's legend. If the architect is Andre, the motive is pure DiMera, reclaim the family banner, rewrite succession, and humiliate anyone who ever doubted his supremacy. If not Andre, then someone using his brand of terror as a smokescreen. Motives behind the mask. Power consolidation is the obvious prize, but there's more at stake. Secrets Kristen holds about allies and offspring, and secrets Tony holds about board votes and offshore holdings. Disable them both, and you don't just win a vote, you erase countermoves before they exist. There's also the vendetta element. A score settler could be staging a family implosion disguised as internal rot. The evidence trail to watch. Timeline anomalies, ship logs, security footage blackouts, and business meetings no assistant can verify. Statesville irregularities, guard rotations, emergency drills, or maintenance windows that align with a blind spot. Voice and cadence slips. The DiMera's Achilles heel. Imposters always miss a private shorthand, a pet name, or ritual. Is Kristen with Tony? This is the twist that would turn mystery into siege. If both are held at the same site, the captor wants leverage ×2, Tony for corporate legitimacy, Kristen for intelligence and insurance. The duo locked together would create combustible dromalliances by necessity, confessions under duress, and a test of who breaks first when family loyalty collides with survival. Did Andre do it all? If the answer is yes, expect the signatures, a double who behaves just off-key enough to unsettle Anna, a ransom that looks like a test rather than a payday, and a reveal staged as a coronation. Andre prefers the long-con breadcrumbs, masks, and a final monologue that ties 6 months of coincidences into one ruthless design. His endgame would be to crown himself as the only DiMera who can save the house he secretly set on fire. Kristen's next move. Blindfold off, survival mode on. Kristen will probe boundaries, bait guards, and weaponize information even half-truths to flush out the power behind the curtain. She'll test whether the captor needs her alive, whether the setting has escape vectors, and whether a single phone call can ignite a family war. If she senses Andre, she'll play the double game. If she senses an outsider, she'll dangle DiMera fighting as a lure. Anna, EJ, and the fallout. Anna will escalate publicly, forcing EJ into optics he can't control, pressuring law enforcement, cornering board allies, and leveraging media to smoke out the captor. EJ, caught between damage control and genuine fear, will overcommit resources, providing the mastermind with patterns to exploit. Every urgent move from the mansion will be mirrored by a countermove in the shadows. The shocking, and this points to the most explosive ending, is a reveal that Tony never returned from the cruise in Leandre did, and that Kristen's abduction was the price of ensuring no one could confirm the switch. Imagine a final sequence where Kristen and the real Tony face each other in the dark, piecing together that the man in Salem is a mask. The unmasking would not just reclaim identities, it would redraw the hierarchy of the entire canvas. What to watch next? A rescue that arrives too cleanly to be real. A board vote advanced under emergency bylaws. A keepsake or scar only the real Tony would know. Kristen extracting a name with a single, dangerous promise. Welcome back to NBC News Channel. Today's mystery sets the board for a DiMera reckoning, 2 disappearances, 1 signature, and a Salem ready to learn whether its greatest villain has been standing in plain sight all along.